Hi, I'm Mary Lyons, the Wealth Woman.
I'm Eric Alexander with Benchmark Income Group.
Welcome to the Big Wealth Podcast. We have a special treat in store for you today. We have Tresa Todd, founder of the Women's Real Estate Investor Network, published author, and superb teacher. I mean, you have probably 11,000 people going through your masterclass on any given month. Yeah. So I feel very privileged that we get to spend an hour with you or a half hour and really get into what you're doing and how you're teaching the people that you get to influence, because that's a huge reach.
Yeah.
Well, Mary, I am so excited about and honored to be here. So thank you. And I'm excited to just share with your listeners and be on this podcast with you.
Well, I'd love to just jump right in. My first question, I think what everybody wants to know, you've been in the real estate world for a while now. How did you get your start?
Well, I have a crazy story. I raised 3 amazing sons that I'm crazy proud of, and they became real estate investors. I was in Tyler, Texas, and they were here in Dallas, had all finished college, and became real estate investors and found crazy success. I mean, they had found their niche, they had found their calling, and they ended up doing over 100 real estate transactions in the first 2 years. And
wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I was just a mom that was proud. And I love to say that when your kids are in business together and they're successful and they're not killing each other, that's
life goals.
Really.
You've done good.
Yeah. So I was just so excited to watch them. And they kept saying, Mom, you need to come do this. We'll teach you how to do this. And I had been in the medical field for 25 years. That's what I knew. And so I would always say, I'll think about it. But I wasn't really thinking about it. I was 50 years old and I was not thinking of starting all over in a whole new career. But it's a whole story. I won't go into that today, but they talked me into it and I made that leap of faith. I moved to Dallas, Texas. I left everything behind.
So scary.
Yeah, crazy. Walked away from a 25-year career, all my friends, my church, everything I knew, and moved to the Big D and started investing in real estate, and it literally changed my life in so many ways.
Well, I think to this point right off the bat, I mean, what you're talking about is the kind of bravery that I think most people don't have. Right. It is so easy to stay in a status quo kind of situation, even if you know you're not happy. And it sounds like you actually were pretty happy. But it's hard to make a change like that. Where did that courage come from?
Well, Mary, I'll tell you. So I am also a faith-based speaker and teacher. And that January of 2017, when I made that leap, I was actually teaching a Bible study out of the book of Joshua, all about being brave. Joshua 1:9 says, have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And as I was teaching it that year, it came alive in me. And the word brave that you just used, I knew that God was saying to me, Tresa, have I not commanded you to be brave? And I took that word and I was just like, from here on out, I'm going to live brave. And so it was I was teaching that in January, and it was March when my sons really called and they were like, Mom, it's time. You need to come do this. And literally because of that scripture, I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And so I gave my 2 weeks notice and put my house on the market and went full time. And I am so thankful for Joshua 1:9.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great. So was there still some, what I call pucker moments on the other end? I mean, it's never.
Oh my gosh, so many. And there still is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, of course, when it's all exciting when you make that decision, but then when you get in the trenches and you're actually going out and you're trying to get that very first deal, I was so scared. I was not as natural. It didn't seem as my sons were. So I struggled and thought, oh my gosh, I've made the biggest mistake of my life. I need to go get my job back. But then it finally just started happening. Oh my, once you get that very first deal, then you know it's real. And it's like, oh my gosh, all I'd have to do is go do another one and another one and another one. And so, yeah, it's been scary, but the excitement, the adventure has been so much more than the fear.
Yeah. My running joke is there's moments where Noah was sick of building that boat, but it's, there's days where it's like, I got to go do this. This is going to be good,
That's right. That's right.
So when you first got started, and you and I've had some previous conversations about this, and one of the things that I thought was interesting that you and I talked about was that it was very difficult to find a mentor who looked like you, right? Somebody that you really could relate to on a different level. And I find that that is true in most of the financial spaces. Yes. So talk to me about what that experience was like.
Yes.
And I know you had some like, where are the women moments?
Absolutely. So my sons, they were taking me to all of these networking and real estate investors association meetings with them. And literally sometimes I was the only woman in the room, or I was a handful of women in the room. And because I also had this history of empowering women, by teaching Bible studies and all that, I first of all was like, okay, where are all the women? And an average woman like myself, if I could learn how to do this, I knew that so many other women needed to know this specialized knowledge that my sons had given me about investing in real estate.
Right.
So yeah, I was like, okay, I'm eager. And so again, it was really my sons. I was always whining about where are all the women, and they said, well, start something for women. And so I did, right in Dallas, and there were 40 women walked into the very first meeting. I had it at my office. Wow. And I was so afraid. I was like, I didn't even know if women wanted to learn how to invest in real estate. I didn't know anybody in Dallas. I just moved here. But 40 women came to that very first meeting.
That's amazing.
And
That's a good turnout.
Kept having meetings. Yeah, oh my gosh, if 5 had showed up, I would have been happy.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
We just grew, and they kept coming back, and every time they came back, there would be more. And so we have branched out all over the Metroplex. Then we were in Houston, and then COVID hit, and I had to shut down all of my trainings and all of my meetings. And so then that's when I started teaching online, and it went nationwide, and it's been absolutely amazing.
Well, and I think what's really amazing about this is that it hasn't been that long. I mean, you figured it out for yourself. You started teaching other people. And when you think about how many lives you're impacting with the masterclass that you're teaching, and then the mentoring that your company does, it is a huge quantity of women. So that fear of, is anybody even going to show up to that? Clearly, there are a lot of women out there who are looking for information that has the potential to change their lives. And so I think that's amazing that you've been able to do that in such a short period of time and in such a positive way.
Yeah, that's the thing that I think I am the most proud of, is how it is making impact all over the nation. I have students from all 50 states, Hawaii, Alaska. And so, yes, the question was, do women want to learn? Yes, they do. Yeah. And when they were given that opportunity, I think in a place where they felt a little more comfortable and not as intimidated, they were ready to go. They were just waiting for somebody to give them the mentoring and the training, and they just taken off, and it's been a wild ride.
So talk to me about your masterclass, right? This is kind of the entry into what you teach, and it's a long course. It's not just a 1 hour kind of thing. It's everything you need to know. What are you covering in the masterclass?
Yes. So it's a 7-day masterclass, and there is a 2-hour training every single evening. And we cover everything. So we're not just, I like to say, we're not a one-trick pony. I don't just teach how to flip or just how to purchase rentals, but we teach everything from wholesaling properties, flipping, rentals, short-term and mid-term rentals, seller financing, some advanced strategies like purchasing subject to the existing loan. So we teach how to find these deals, how to fund the deals. So we literally cover all things A to Z when it comes to investing in single family homes.
And do you have some people that are getting into sort of the multifamily and some other components of it, or is that kind of the bread and butter of that single family?
Yeah, I teach single family because multifamily is a whole different ball game. But obviously that's the next step. When women begin to have a ton of success at single family, then they're ready to move on to multifamily.
To the bigger deals, right? And so what is that? Absolutely. So what do those women look like? So when they come to you, are they kind of like you were? They're like, yeah, I'm sick of this gig. I'm ready to go do different stuff. Or what is that? What does that natural client look like?
Yes, that's a great question. I love that because actually we have women. So what's really crazy is most women are 45 to 65. That's the average range of women. And I think it is because they're getting closer to that retirement and they're beginning to realize, like myself, I had done what I thought everything right for 25 years. I had the 401k, I had the savings, I was not in debt over my head. But realized, wow, I mean, I'm never going to truly be able to retire and have a dream life in any form or fashion. And so I think that is what a lot of these women are realizing. But the beautiful thing is it's women of so many ages. I do have some women that are in their 20s and 30s. I have some women in their 70s. And God, I love that. Kudos to those that are getting a younger start, but also kudos to those ladies that are, in their 60s, 70s and still saying,
and still doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. But yeah, every race, every economic situation. And that is one of the things that we teach is how to use what we call other people's money in this industry. So you don't have to have this large stash of money somewhere. And I think that is the biggest myth that people believe to begin investing, that you have to have this large stash of money. And one of the things that we teach in the masterclass is how you can do this without that large stash of money.
I love that because I think you're absolutely right. I think you hit it on the head. People frequently think they have to already be rich to do this kind of stuff. And I hear people all the time say, well, I probably couldn't work with you because I don't have enough money. And then they tell me what they earn or what they do have. And I'm like, what on earth? Why would you think you can't work with a financial advisor just because you're getting started? How are you supposed to get rich if you don't find the people that will teach you when you
absolutely, Mary? Yes.
Yeah. So what would you say what would the differences be, for example, if somebody had, no money and they're really trying to figure out how to get started versus somebody who showed up that had $500,000 or $1 million already saved up and ready to do something with?
Okay, well, there's something called passive investing and active investing. So active investing is how I started. It's how my son started. I mean, we go out and we find these deals and we start out by wholesaling, and you can make, just large chunks of money wholesaling properties, super simple strategy. And it literally, you can do that with no money. And then flipping, and you can make obviously a lot of money flipping, and that's just fast cash. But that's active investing. Passive investing is when you're an active investor, the whole goal is to become a passive investor, because now it's easier and you're just using your money and you're not using all this time and effort that it takes. It does take a little more of that when you're in as an active investor. But passive is when you're just purchasing rentals. And again, but not the traditional way. We still show you how to do that using very, very, very little money. But it helps if you have a little bit of money, and you can just buy up rentals. And this is building long-term wealth. This is that generational wealth, leaving it to your children and your children's children and all of that.
You're speaking my love language right now.
And then best off, and the easiest is passive private money lending. So if you've got that large stash of money, like you just mentioned, Mary, now you don't have to do any of those things. You just lend money. And that's the beautiful thing about the Women's Real Estate Investors Network. I have women coming in. Some have more time than money. Some have more money than time. So the ones with money they will loan their money to some of these other women so that they can go out and they can create wealth, but they're making 10, 12, 15% on the money that they're loaning because they're short-term loans.
Right.
And it's a win-win for both. Women that could not afford to be an investor now are using other people's money, but women that had money sitting somewhere that was not making them but 4% can now lend that money out, make 10, 12, 15%, and they're all just getting wealthy together. So
I love that it builds off of each other, that the whole community benefits. That's the way that you're teaching this. I think that's an amazing thing. And I love the focus on generational wealth too. That's something that Eric and I talk about a lot. There are a lot of people, I feel like, that say things that I think they don't really mean in their hearts, right? I mean, we've talked to people that when we say, okay, what legacy do you want to leave? They say things like, well, my parents didn't leave me anything and I'm just fine. And I'm always like, well, that's really interesting, because when I say legacy, it doesn't have to be financial. Some of this is social impact. It's what you're teaching your kids. It's how you're changing the community around you. The financial legacy is just a small piece of it, but it's amazing how that's immediately where we go. But even beyond that, if you have the ability to create a better life for yourself, and a byproduct of that is that the next generation is even better off because of what you're doing, that why would you not take that? That's a win-win.
And as well as teaching them how to use this money wisely and how to make impact. And so that's part of the legacy that I want to leave, is not just leaving a lot of money to my kids and grandkids, but I also want to leave the legacy of the right mindset around money and doing good and making impact with that money, not just hoarding it up and buying bigger houses and not
we're going out and building going out and building bigger barns, right? So tell me about the mindset piece of it, because I think so much of what we see with clients that are coming through work that we get to work with is the math is easy, the process is easy, nothing's really that complex, but they always get tripped up around either this isn't me, like there's some upper limit problem of like, I'm not this kind of person, or this is for other people, or I don't have the right schooling, the right knowledge. The mindset seems to get everybody tripped up. How do you see it on your end?
Oh, so true. And with real estate investing as well. But I always say there's two things in this world that holds us back from reaching our destiny and our dreams. And one of them is finances, right? If we had all the finances, then we could do all the things. But the other thing is fear. Fear holds us back. So if we're a fear of trying something new, even myself, I never saw myself as a businesswoman. So making that jump was like, it felt like I'm going to try to make this, but anybody can do this. Anybody. So we do have to overcome that fear and gain that confidence. So in the Women's Real Estate Investors Network, that is a huge part of the mentoring part, is teaching the right mindset and helping women overcome that fear. Just like when I told you, I started with the word brave. You see, be brave behind me. I sign all of my emails, be brave and dream big, because in order for us to make impact, we're going to have to step out in courage and do some things that are hard and break past a lot of mental barriers. And so we teach a lot about just really letting women remember that they can be brave, that they can do hard things, because we live in a world that always wants to take the easy way out.
Sure.
And if we just continue to live a life of always taking the easy way out, we're going to live a small, impoverished life. But if we can begin to walk in bravery and courage and take the right risk, calculated risk, not just, crazy risk, but, and begin to believe in ourselves and have confidence that God's called us higher. He's called us to do amazing things, and he wants to equip us to do it. And so that's a huge part of what we do.
I just want to listen to you say that over and over again. I need to just start my morning with exactly what you said every day. I love this.
Well, there's two. Hang on real quick on. So there's actually two quotes that I keep thinking of as you're talking that I read almost every morning. One of them is by Lou Holtz, and I think it was Lou Holtz, and this quote of, "I'm convinced that God didn't put us on this earth to be average." And then the other one was from a book called The Traveler's Gift by a guy named Andy Andrews. And one of the quotes from that book is, "Fear is a poor chisel with which to create the future." And I think through that, when you're talking, it's like, I don't have to be brave. I don't have to be courageous 100% of the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I just need little moments of it and the ability to kind of step out and trust that it's not a faulty bridge, right? So I like kind of that approach. So I appreciate that.
And I think bravery too is like any other muscle. You have to practice. The more you use it, the easier it gets to use it. But if you haven't used it in a long time, I think it can be really scary. And, you know, I want to talk more about this mindset piece for a second, because this is the stuff that like, this is what I read. This is what we're talking about with our clients, because you know, if you don't have the right mindset and the money shows up, you're going to lose the money.
Yes.
Right? But if you have the right mindset and you're approaching it properly, you can really change things. And even with the generational aspect of this, I was talking to a client of mine a couple of weeks ago, a new client who just started working with us. And when I asked her what she wanted to leave for her kids, she said, well, I don't want to leave them a bunch of money because I feel like that's going to turn them into bad people. And I was like, whoa, hold the train. Why do you think money is going to turn them into a bad human? If you equip your children properly, they will do the right things with the money because they are who they are. And that piece to me is always so interesting, because it's we attach meaning to money that doesn't belong there. Right. And that how do you deal with somebody who maybe has some of that going on? Are there things that you say there, or is it that you tell your story and then they see that they can behave differently?
Yes, I think both of those things. Because I see that too. And so really coaching, and I was of this, I came from a very, very low class family. And so I had that scarcity mindset. I had a lot of wrong beliefs around money and didn't even, I just never thought it was possible for me. And what I love to really help women to understand is that the average person never goes higher than how they were raised. That we all stay in the economic level that we were raised in, because that's what we're comfortable with. That's what we know. That's what we feel like we deserve. It's very difficult to like break out of that. But when you recognize it and you determine, oh, wait a minute, I can go higher. I don't have to live here. It was so freeing when I began to understand that. And so I love to teach that is, listen, you can go as high as you can believe. So if we are just constantly, shaking off and going up another level in our mindset, you can accomplish anything. And then you, Mary, what you just said is so powerful. It's, I'm leaving my kids with some money, and I do not have any doubt that they're going to do horrible things with that money. I know, because I'm also raised them up to instill them to be men of integrity, to do the right thing, and to make impact and to care about other people outside of yourself. And so I am excited that when I am gone, that legacy is going to live on. And my kids and my grandkids are I believe, going to make a greater impact than I will ever be able to make, whatever years I have left on this earth.
Yeah.
And you get to influence that. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, money to me, it's just a tool. It's meant to help us build a life we're excited to live. And what I've found in my life personally, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well, is that when you are connected to a purpose and an impact that you are trying to make, either in a local, national, or international community, that it is a much more fulfilling and happy life than when you are only focused on yourself and what you're getting. And that to me is true regardless of income level. And it seems to be sort of the transcendent idea. I don't know. I mean, everybody wants to know, why am I here? What is the meaning of life? Like those are the age old questions. And to me, I feel like purpose and impact are the two things that keep me going even when things are hard.
Oh, I could not agree more. So what's crazy is I was living a very fulfilled life on my little budget in Tyler, Texas, in the medical field. But because I was very involved in a ministry that I had purpose and I loved that, and I knew that that was my calling. So what's really funny is whenever I left and became a real estate investor, that first year or two, I was making more money than I'd ever made before in my life. And it was wild and crazy. But at the same time, I felt it was such a struggle emotionally. I felt the less fulfilled than I've ever felt before. Because I had a purpose before. I was broke with purpose. Now I had money, but no purpose. And so when I actually started the Women's Real Estate Investors Network, and I was able to pour into other women, which has always been my calling, and see them succeed. And then I began to have the vision that, oh my gosh, if I can help these 40 and then these 60 and then these, we can go nationwide. And so, I am truly living my purpose right now, watching women all over the nation. And so when you put that little piece with it, I mean, oh my gosh, this Thanksgiving season for me was just one of the best because I have so much to be thankful for. And I'm just so grateful. And so I just want to really inspire your women, to encourage them to find that purpose and then and overcome that fear, and then let people like Mary and myself help you to create the finances so that you can go out there and live your dreams and fulfill your purpose in life.
I love it. Yeah. I love it because it's, again, right, it's about dreaming big and then turning that dream into reality. And I think that's something that gets squished when we get older. I mean, you think about it, when we're young, we all have these big dreams. We can do anything. I mean, I go back and my mom kept these little notebooks where you would write what I want to be when I grow up and what your dreams were. And she would save all these little mementos. And it, I mean, it's crazy the stuff that's in there. I remember as an elementary school student, I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player, and I believed I could do it, even though no other woman had ever done anything like that.
I love it.
And whether it's realistic or not, it's that there's these big dreams, and I believe you can make things happen. And I do feel like so much of the time that gets almost squished out of people's lives. And they start making themselves smaller and smaller, and they get into this space of settling. And what I love about what you're doing, and especially the way you're doing it, Tresa, is that you make this content approachable. It's not crazy expensive for people to learn these life-changing concepts. In fact, when you told me what you were charging, I was like, I'm sorry, what? How does that make good business sense? Like, what's happening? I mean, the masterclass is how much?
$17. For 7 days,
14 hours worth of class time. I mean, you're not even paying $1 an hour at that point. I mean, or you're paying just over, right?
Just over,
It's crazy. It's crazy to me that you will give all of this content away, right? But I think, it's
about making that impact. It's making that impact. And I mean, if women can take that and go out there and change their life and change the trajectory of their family and make impact, then I've done my job.
Yeah.
Right. Well, one last question on mindset, and then I want to be a nerd for just a second and talk technical crap. But one of the things that, you and I have a similar background, I think, on some of this, but one of the things I see a lot of times in the church is, being wealthy is, that's not how we do stuff, right? And one of the things I have to keep working to get across to people is no charity ever got funded by a poor person. I mean, there was the widow's mite, and but if we want to make a big impact, right? It's not about greed. To me, it's about stewardship and sort of pushing beyond so that you can do more. So I think it's really neat what you're doing on that side.
I love it. God tells us that he blesses us to be a blessing. So many times in scripture, it talks about taking care of the widow and the orphans and giving to the poor. How do we do that if we're broke?
Right.
Yeah.
But if we have plenty of resources and provision, then we can just give at every whim. We can just give and bless this person and that organization.
Right.
And I believe that's what God's called us to.
Yeah, it's the parable of the talents and the Matthew principle and all that other stuff that sort of comes through.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about, because the times, they are changing. 6 months ago, 10 months ago, 12 months ago, money was cheap and free flowing. We can do whatever we wanted, and everything was 1% for anything. So how's the interest rate environment shifted where you guys are going and what you see?
Well, I certainly don't love the interest rate, that's for sure. But the great thing about real estate investing is, listen, people always need a home.
Right.
That's never going to change. And so a lot of people right now cannot buy a home. And this is the opportunity as an investor that we should be buying up every rental property that we could get our hands on.
Right.
And again, as we do that, we're going to be a blessing to a lot that if we can offer them affordable housing right now.
Right. Yeah,
because they can't buy houses.
Right.
COVID really, especially right here in Texas, so many people moved to Texas.
Right.
The houses just a few months ago going over asking, all of the things. But now I just heard a property manager tell me that there are 20 to 30 people on a wait list for every house that goes up for rent.
Oh, wow. And
so what does that tell us as an investor?
Is it a supply
rentals.
problem? Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And are you seeing people that are not able to find the deals because of the financing part of it, or is it just supply? Just raw supply of houses?
No, definitely. I would not be being honest if I said the financing is a little tougher with the higher interest rate.
Right.
But I always say, hey, when the economy is like it is now, if you've ever looked at history, this is where most investors get rich. This is where they make tons of money, is right now, when everybody else gets scared, when everybody else stops buying. But here's the deal.
Yeah.
Prices are going down.
Yep.
So prices are going down. Let's buy those things. Even if we're paying a little higher interest rate, we can refinance when it goes down.
Right.
And we are going to still have great pieces of property that are going to be making us money for a very long time. So I may buy something that I'm not making very much money on for the next 2 or 3 years if this interest rate, where it is. Mm-hmm. But I know it's going down. That's just the way of the world. It's up and down. And when it goes down, I am going to have some yummy pieces of property in my, hand to.
I think Texas and Dallas and Austin in particular have so much projected growth expected to happen in the next decade that I don't think we've come anywhere near the cap of values on property at all. And I think I was just talking to a client of mine about the development that their company is doing in certain areas around Dallas, and the amount of jobs that will be created from all of the ancillary businesses that are created even around what they're doing. It's like, okay, well, I know where I need to be looking.
Right.
Yes.
It's interesting to me. And I love what you said, that this is the environment where when people get scared, that's when the opportunity is usually showing up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that almost anti-herd mentality, finding people who can help you figure out where the deals are when you aren't sure what you should be looking at, I think is crucial.
Listen, I love it because I hear everybody's, you just can't do anything in this market. Yeah. And every time I hear them, I'm like, well, you just keep thinking that, because that's just more deals for me, less competition. And that was the same thing that happened in COVID. There were so many investors that just, for whatever reason, they're like, we can't do this. And we did some of our very best deals in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
And so I'm not slowing down. And I do believe that we're going to have less competition, because the most amount of people, and y'all probably know this, they react to the fear and they just stop. And I am trying to teach my ladies, do not let all of this junk that you hear get into your head. Just stay the focus. Keep doing exactly what I've taught you. I've given you a formula. And if you just keep doing that, when all of this is over, you're going to raise your head and you're going to be so happy that you did.
Yeah.
I remember even going back to like the 2008, 2009 time period. And I was just starting my career. I had not quite hit my stride yet. I had burned through all my capital launching what I was doing. My husband was in law school. And I just remember looking at the price of condos near SMU. And they were going for like $30,000 to like $60,000. And I look at those properties. I looked them up recently to see. I mean, had I had any idea how to do this back then, it would have been just absolutely nuts. I mean, there were townhomes right off of Bryan Park down by the hospital where all like the nurses and everybody tend to stay. And those condos were going for under $100,000 and they're right by downtown. And I just look at that and I'm like, man, had I figured out how to get access to capital at that point and had even like a halfway decent mentor about all of that, the amount of growth that could have been had, it just kills me. I don't like to think about it.
Yeah. Well, so from a standpoint of some of the changing cycles, are you seeing more and more going towards that short-term rental VRBO vacation side, or is it more long-term, or do you see that shifting?
I think there is a huge need for both. There's a huge, well, let me just say this. There's more of a need for just traditional rentals.
Just long-term.
There obviously there's, that because a lot of people are in needing of housing.
Right.
But the rage is that VRBO and short-term rentals and mid-term rentals. And you can double, sometimes triple the amount of money that you would make, whether if you just turn this regular traditional rental into a short-term rental, double and like I said, sometimes triple the amount of money. And hey, especially here in Texas, it's not slowing down. People are still going on vacations. They're still showing up. So if you are in a great location for a short-term rental, mid-term rental, it is a lucrative business.
And are you seeing some of the municipalities sort of, because they do need supply, like we need places to put bodies long-term. Are you seeing some of the municipalities sort of pull back on allowing some of the short-term rentals?
Yeah, not in Texas. And so I haven't seen, like, if you're like, I haven't noticed any change in Texas in the last 6 months or even the last 3 months, but that is a good question. And that could happen. But I believe most of the time you would be grandfathered in if you already have one. But it is something that we definitely need to pay attention to. I always teach my ladies that when you're considering a short-term rental, that's the very first thing that you want to find out is it okay to have this short-term rental? Because it does take a little more money to get started with the short-term rental, because you have to completely furnish it with, all the little details. And I wouldn't want you to go out and spend the money to do that just to find out later that you cannot, they're not going to allow it to. So you definitely want to check with your city and, the HOAs possibly, or whoever, to know. But, and it'll be interesting, Eric, to see if they do pull back in some areas because of the need. And if that's the case, if you're buying them the right way, you could just go back, let it be a regular rental. And then once they, because I believe it's just kind of like Uber. Do you remember in Uber in the beginning? They were going to try to shut that down. And I think it's going to be the same way with short-term rental. Even these places that have, are not allowing it. I think a lot of them at some point are going to lift that, because ultimately people get what they want. And I think people want short-term rentals.
Well, and I think too, there's a way to make it very profitable for a given municipality. Some of the things that I've heard about that specifically, we were looking at property in New Mexico for a while, both in Towson and Santa Fe, and talking to the realtors and even talking to the locals in the area. There actually was a lot of anger about the short-term rentals, because for the locals, what it actually did was it drove up housing prices when people from outside were coming and buying as a second home and then subsidizing costs or even creating profit by renting it out. And it priced the locals out of the market. And you've seen that in spaces like Telluride and Taos and those types of areas.
Up in Colorado.
And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see from a regulatory perspective how that does play out, because I know a lot of those areas have restrictions now in order to protect the people that actually live there. But if, I think about Texas, I think part of the reason Texas is not changing the regulation is because instead of state income tax, we have property taxes.
Yes.
So when properties go up in value, Texas is like, bring it. That's more money. So,
yes. And it is bringing in so many people into Telluride. Those short-term rentals are bringing people in. And
those other businesses are making money too.
Yeah. So, but for me, if I'm just looking for, we just look for the next closest place. The next closest place that is allowing it.
Yeah.
And then that becomes the next up and coming.
Well, and the math that we had looked at is if the math works for long-term, then it sure as heck works for short-term. And so just buying it properly at the beginning, and you've covered all your bases.
Yes. And then just let me throw something in. A lot of places that are banning short-term, their rule will be, it's got to be a 30-day.
Right.
Yeah. Like a midterm.
Okay. Well, that's the midterm. Your midterm hits that. And so there's a lot of people that are coming for school or nurses. That's what I was trying to do. Nursing. Nurses, and so midterm is just a beautiful way to still make a lot more money than traditional. Not quite as well. You could pretty much make the same as a short term, but you can. So there's a lot of places that will allow a 30-day.
Yeah.
But not a short-term rental.
Yeah. And corporate housing and some of those other places are good spots for that too.
Or insurance. If somebody is having repairs on their house from damage and the insurance company is paying.
Yeah. And it's a nice hybrid, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask a quick question here. What does financial freedom mean to you?
I love this question. Financial freedom, I think, looks different for everybody. But for me, it looks like exactly what you just said. The freedom to choose. The freedom to choose what I want to do every day. Yeah. The freedom to choose where I want to go, how I want to, spend my money. And it's just that freedom. When you are enslaved to time making your money, I mean, you've got to work so many hours. And especially with moms, I see them working crazy hours and getting home just in time to rush their kid through eating and getting the homework done and going to bed and then getting all up the next day and doing it all over again. And that financial freedom gives you the freedom to live a different kind of a lifestyle. And to, I know for me, raising my 3 sons, I called it, we went on a vacation on a budget. And I mean, I saved all year long to go on this vacation where we were going to stay at a place that there was a continental breakfast. And I mean, I had to plan it all out, on those types of things. And, but with being financially free, you can truly enjoy a vacation and life itself. I mean, I raised my kids where when we went out to eat, we drink water. I mean, not that that was probably the healthiest choice anyway, but because, hey, $2 a piece on a drink. So every single thing I did was on a budget. And so just the freedom to eat and have a glass of tea when you or go on a vacation and just have that freedom to have time freedom with your family and not always being in a rush. That's freedom is what we all want in this world.
Well,
freedom to make our own choices.
And I think what you're doing is so powerful, because my argument would be that there's a certain amount of freedom that comes from knowing the path and knowing how to make the money and knowing how to make the plan and knowing how to achieve the freedom, I think, is that first kernel. Because if I know that I'm just stuck at this job and I have no power, nothing to go do, that's enslavement, right? Financial enslavement.
Oh, it is. But emotionally, mentally.
yeah, there's no efficacy, right? There's no, I don't know how to get out of here. But I think that first kernel of freedom is, I know the levers to pull and the knobs to turn to go make my life better. And to me, that's when the spark hits. It's like, oh, I can do this. And if you have, if at least as long as you have I got this, I can see the path out. To me, that's worth the price of gold right there. That's
it's hope. It's hope.
Yeah.
It's hope for your future. You know, my master classes are called Without Fear of Her Future. And that's what I want for women, is to not fear our future, but to have hope for the future, have hope for your kids.
Look forward to it.
Exactly. Not just always being afraid of the hot water heater going out, and that's going to blow everything for you, or whatever that, you know, at a different level. But
everybody walk carefully, because we can't afford anything to go wrong. Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I've been there. And then the last question I had, and Mary, I'll let you go, is, you know, being the one in the room here with different plumbing than the other two of you, is there a space for men in that program as well? Because I noticed you have a lot of men that are
really
coaches
in my program. And you know what? I'm glad you actually brought that up, because I am the Women's Real Estate Investors Network. I obviously have 3 sons. I love men. And this is not about that whole thing. Yeah. But so what we have is our training, our group is all for women, but so many of these women are bringing their husbands into this. They're watching the training, and they're going in and they're flipping houses together, and they're creating wealth together. So really, in the Women's Real Estate Investors Network, you have to be connected to a woman inside the network to really have access to everything. But I have sons that they would love to teach a few good men everything that they know about real estate investing.
Awesome.
I love it. Well, Tresa, where can they find you? Where can they find more information about your masterclass, your book? If they're trying to get involved with real estate and they think you're the route to get there, what should they do?
Well, you could find me at Women's, REIN, Women's, that's WOMENS, REIN is what, REIN, that's Real Estate Investors Network.com. And you can find out when our next masterclass is. You can learn all about us and everything that's going on. We have a live event coming up in April where we literally broke a record and created history with having the largest Women's Real Estate Investors Network event in the history of over 3,000 women coming together. Yeah. So it's just crazy. So the Women's Real Estate Investors Network, Google that, and you can find everything. We have a masterclass starting this Sunday, withoutfearofherfuture.com. This Sunday for $17. If you are the least bit interested in all the things that we've been talking about, and then jump into that masterclass. I would love for you to be a part of it.
That's
awesome.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much. It has been, Tresa, it has been such a privilege to have you on with us today. Thank you so much for your time and for all of your great knowledge and for sharing it all with us so selflessly. If you're looking for me, you can find me at The Wealth Woman, wherever you social media. Eric, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm at Economics with Eric, again, wherever you social media. Thank you so much.
See you next time.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Mary.
Bye.